Hi everyone, good afternoon. Many thanks for joining us today for our Food for Thought seminar. My name is Sophie Watson and I'm part of the Food for Thought team. Before I introduce you to today's speakers, I'd like to remind you of some housekeeping rules. Since we're on Teams Live, you will not be able to unmute your microphones to ask questions. However, we do welcome any questions or comments you may have, and you can post these into the Q&A chat box, which should appear at the right of your screen. Please note that any questions will be picked up at the end of the presentation. Today's seminar is also being recorded and seminar recording will be circulated in due course. So for today's seminar, I'd like to provide a very warm welcome to Dr. Beth Armstrong and to Charlotte Parnell. They're here today to present on FSA's flagship survey, Food and You Too. Dr. Beth Armstrong is based at the University of Sheffield and has been working with the FSA since 2020 as the Food and You Too Research Fellow. Beth works with the FSA's flagship consumer survey, Food and You Too, which explores people's food-related knowledge, attitudes and behaviours. Beth's previous research has explored a range of food-related topics, including how real-world product placements influence food choice, how ethical and provenance information can impact food-related intentions and perceptions, and interventions to reduce food waste. Charlotte Parnell is a Senior Social Science Research Officer at the FSA and leads on the day-to-day delivery of the Food and You Too survey. Charlotte has worked within the civil service for the last 5 years, with the last 2 years spent working at the FSA. Previous research has included research with food businesses, local authorities and consumers to support the FSA's Achieving Business Compliance programme. So without further ado, and from all of us at the Food for Thought team, we hope you enjoy, and I'll now pass you over to Beth and Charlotte to begin their presentation. Thanks. Oh, Beth, I think you're on mute.
There we are. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can. Thanks,
amazing. Beth. So to get started, can you see my slides okay now?
Yeah, we can.
Perfect. So to get started, today we're going to do a whistle-stop tour of Food and You. So just to kind of guide you through what we're going to do today, we'll do everything from what is Food and You to a quick run through our latest survey results. So to kick off, what is Food and You? You may have heard about it, but not know what it is or where it's come from. So Food and You is the FSA's flagship survey with adults living in households across England, Wales and Northern Ireland. And it measures people's knowledge, attitudes and behaviours related to food and food safety. The survey is self-reported, so people fill in the survey themselves. We don't go in their house and observe them. And also to flag that our adults are 16 and over rather than 18 and over, which is just worth considering when you're looking through the results. And also Food and You is an official statistic, meaning it meets the gold standards for providing data. So where did Food and You Too come from? It only started in 2020 when we did the first wave of Food and You Too. But as the name suggests, there was a Food and You previously. So from 2010 to 2018, we had the original Food and You. This was a face-to-face survey. So when people used to come knocking on your door with a clipboard to fill in the survey. But this ran with far fewer adults, so around 3,000 adults, and only ran every couple of years. Whereas the new Food and You uses a method called push to web, which I'll go through in a moment. And due to this new method change, we can run the survey more often. So we tend to do it every 6 months and increase the sample. So we test around 6,000 adults in each wave of data collection. So that's kind of the main development of Food and You, but it also took on questions from some other FSA surveys, the public attitudes tracker, and the food hygiene rating scheme tracker. So just a quick summary of what push to web is. So what happens, we take the postcode address file from the Royal Mail and select some postcodes for people to take part. They then receive an invitation in the post asking them to take part in the survey online. We do also send hard copies in the post with a reminder letter, and this is just to make sure we can have a more representative sample, because we know that not everybody would want to take part online or can take part online, so that helps make the survey include more groups of people. Food and You asks about so many interesting things, all food related. We have what we call our core modules. They're things that we ask every 6 months, so in every wave. They relate to trust in food safety and authenticity, food security, and people's concerns about food. But we also ask about other things, not necessarily in every wave of data collection. These are things like food shopping, emerging issues, so things like genetically modified foods or gene edited foods, and experiences of people with food allergies and intolerances. And a big focus of what we ask about is also food safety, so food safety in the home, which Charlotte will touch upon some of those results today. So you may be asking, how do I know what's asked when? Charlotte did a really great job of setting us up a new website for you. So the homepage, which you can scan the QR code there if you want to look, has a lovely grid that tells you when we have asked each bank of questions, if they were in the last wave or two or three waves previous. And there's a handy link that takes you to the latest data. So that has thankfully simplified it a lot for everybody. So some of you may be familiar with what we use the data for in the FSA. There's a whole range of things. We use it to measure the FSA's mission of food we can trust with some of our key metrics. We also use it to inform policy initiatives. So, for example, we include questions on the food hygiene rating scheme, and we use that to help estimate the usage of that by consumers. We inform communication campaigns. So, for example, if we spot something that consumers are doing differently, we can inform a communications campaign on that particular behaviour. We also use this to inform further research projects. So, for example, a relatively recent one from Food and You looked at students' kitchens, because we spotted from Food and You that a lot of students do exhibit risky food safety behaviours in the home. So we wanted to do a little bit more of a deep dive on that. But the FSA aren't the only people that use Food and You. It's also used by external academics for secondary research and other government departments that we work with more closely, for example, DEFRA, but other organisations like DWP occasionally pick up some of the figures that we use. So a quick tour of the wave 6 results, which is our latest wave of data collection. So just for context, we recruited around 6,000 people for wave 6, and these are in Northern Ireland, Wales and England. And the field work, so this is the period we collected the data, was the end of 2022 to January 2023. So I'll take you through the first module, so that a topic area that we always include in Food and You, and that is food safety, authenticity, and supply chain confidence. So this is one of our key metrics that we look at. And as you can see from the figures here, people have a good level of confidence in all of these things, with around 9 in 10 people being confident that the food they buy is safe to eat, and around 8 in 10 people being confident that the information on food labels is accurate, and being confident in the food supply chain. So we have a quick quiz question for you guys. So, which age group do you think are more likely to be confident in the food supply chain? So these are the age groups that we have in the survey. So if you could either have a think about it or pop a comment in the chat as to which age group you think are most confident in the food supply chain. Okay, so I can't see your answers yet, so I will move on to the actual answer. So it was a bit of a tough question. There isn't one age group that stands out, but generally we find older adults are more confident in the food supply chain than older adults, with around 8 in 10 of those over 55 being confident in the food supply chain, compared to around 7 in 10 of the younger adults. So there's quite a bit of an age difference there. Another thing we ask people about in Food and You too is their trust in actors in the food supply chain. So an actor in the food supply chain, there's some examples on that chart there, but it's anybody who's got an involvement within that. As with previous waves, we can see that farmers are the most trusted of the actors, followed by shops and supermarkets. And again, similar to what we've seen in previous waves, towards the bottom of the ranking there, we have either takeaways or food delivery services. So they're things like Just Eat, Deliveroo, Uber Eats. Another thing we ask people about is their concerns about food. Again, in the FSA, this is one of our core metrics. So one question that we present to people, ask them what in particular they're concerned about, and we give them a list of food-related topics. So I've included some of these on the PowerPoint. So again, if you could have a think about what you think people are most concerned about relating to food at the minute, and either pop a comment in the chat or have a think about that yourself. Okay, again, can't see your answers, but I expect a few of you may have guessed this one. So it is food prices. Given the current context of things, it may not come as a surprise. It's been the top concern for the last couple of waves, so hopefully it won't be such a concern in the future. When we look at other things that people mentioned they were concerned about, we can see there's some particular themes that fall out of this. So apart from cost, which is the top ranking there, we see a few categories relating to diet and nutrition. So these are things like the amount of salt or sugar in food, sustainability and ethics. So food waste is quite a big concern, as is the amount of packaging on food, and also food safety comes out. So food poisoning risk and food hygiene when eating out of the home is also a concern for quite a few people. So we'll move on to the next topic area of food security. As I mentioned, this is something that we include in each wave of Food and You too. And we measure food insecurity using the USDA 10-item module, which asks people to answer up to 10 questions about their food-related experiences. And from that, they're classified into one of 4 food security classifications. I just wanted to leave up this description of food security for a moment, because I know it's something that's been bandied around a lot over the last few years, but not everyone's familiar with exactly what it means. And I feel like this description from the World Food Summit really helps highlight that it's not just having something to eat every day, it's something which meets your nutritional needs and your cultural and food preference needs. So it's more than just being able to eat a pot noodle at the end of each day. It's something more meaningful to people. So as I say, these findings are from Wave 6, so our latest survey. And they actually show that 1 in 4 people are now food insecure across England, Wales and Northern Ireland, which is quite a lot, as you may have seen or maybe expect from the latest media. And when we dig into the results, that we can see that some groups of people are more vulnerable to food insecurity. One of these groups where it's especially pronounced is in younger adults. So you can see there the dark green bar that shows people with a high level of food security. So this runs from 37% in the youngest age group to 84% in the oldest age group. So there's quite a difference there. But age isn't the only factor. We also see increased levels of food insecurity, for example, in lower income households, larger households, and households where somebody maybe has a long-term health condition. That's just a few of them. There are more in the report, and you can always chat to myself if you want to find out anything else about that. We included a new question in Wave 6 of Food and You, which asked people what changes they'd made to their food-related behaviours in the last 12 months, specifically for financial reasons. On the chart here, you can see the top few that people have mentioned. So these relate a lot to what and where people are eating and changes in their shopping habits. So, for example, people say they're eating out less and eating at home more, eating less takeaways, but we can also people trading down in their shopping habits. So people are changing where they buy food for cheaper alternatives and also what they're buying for cheaper alternatives. And we can see this shift in behaviours is affecting most people, with 80% of respondents saying that they had made a change to their food-related behaviours for financial reasons. So this chart relates to the same question, so asking about changes for financial reasons. These rank slightly lower down in what people are doing, but also indicate some potentially risky behaviours that are coming in. So we notice around 3 in 10 people are buying more food which is reduced or discounted closer to the use-by date, and also people are eating more food past the use-by date. And we also can see some food storage behaviours that may be risky, of changing the settings on your fridge or freezer, or changing how you cook your food as well. So I'll now hand over to Charlotte, who's going to take you through some results relating to food safety at the home.
That's great, thanks Beth. So I'm going to talk about the findings from our food safety module. So the FSA publishes consumer advice related to food safety practices, and this includes things such as cooking and chilling food, avoiding cross-contamination, and use by dates. So in Food and U2, we ask consumers about their behaviour in relation to these elements to see how kind of their self-report behaviour relates to aligns with the recommended practice. So the first thing we ask consumers about is hand washing behaviour. So the recommendation is that you wash your hands before you prepare, cook or eat food. And we find in Food and U2 that most people report that they always wash their hands before they start to prepare or cook food. So 72% of respondents said that they always do this, and 27% said that they do this some of the time, so either most of the time or less often. And we found that 91% reported always washing their hands after handling raw meat, poultry or fish, with 8% saying that they did this less often, so most of the time. However, we do find that people are less likely to report always washing their hands before they eat, so eating in the home or outside of the home, where only a third said that they wash their hands or use hand sanitizer and gel before eating. We also ask questions in Food and U2 about how people store their food and their kind of knowledge of how to store food safely within a fridge. So the recommendation is that the inside of temperature of the fridge should be between 0 to 5 degrees Celsius. And we found in Wave 6 that 62% of our respondents were able to kind of correctly identify this as the temperature their fridge should be. And then of those who owned a fridge, 61% reported that they monitored the temperature of their fridge. And they did this either manually, so for example with a thermometer, so 49% said they monitored it this way, or 11% said that they used like an internal fridge alarm to monitor the temperature. We also ask participants about their cooking behaviour, so we recommend that meat is cooked all the way through, and that you shouldn't eat food that has kind of pink or pink juices. And we found that when asking specifically about chicken or turkey, that 89% reported that they never ate chicken or turkey when it was pink or had pink juices. We also recommend that food is only reheated once after it's initially cooked, and we found in Wave 6 that 82% kind of reported following this best practice. We also ask questions about cross-contamination. So the recommendation is that you don't wash raw chicken at all. However, we did find that 40% of people said that they did this at least occasionally. And we also recommended that raw meat or poultry is stored at the bottom of the fridge. And we found that 64% of respondents did do this. However, there was some variation, so 21% said they stored it wherever there was space, 11% stored it at the top of the fridge. So although the majority of people were kind of following the best practice behaviour, there was some variation there. We also ask about use by dates within Food and U2. So first we ask about consumers' awareness, so what information shows food's no longer safe to eat. And we found that 65% correctly identified that it was used by dates, and that 64% of people reported always checking these before they cooked or prepared food. However, we also ask about people's kind of willingness to eat certain foods beyond the use by date, and we do find that quite a lot of people, particularly around certain foods, are kind of willing to do that. So as you can hopefully see from the chart that's on the screen, some foods, the majority of people said they wouldn't eat at any period past the use by date, so particularly shellfish, other fish products and raw meat. However, as you can see on the right hand side, items such as bag salad and cheese were the items that the majority of people said that they would eat past the use by date, so 72% for each item. However, we do see some variation, so we ask consumers how far past the use by date they would be willing to eat these foods. So hopefully you can see there with bag salad, of those people who would eat past the use by date, and 46% said that it would only be kind of 1 or 2 days after. As was with cheese, there's kind of much greater periods people are willing to eat it past. So for example, 20% would eat cheese over a week past the use by date. Sorry, I'm just struggling to get my slides to move on. Okay, brilliant. Sorry about that. We asked respondents as well about how long after the food was initially cooked they would eat leftovers. So the guidance says that it should really be within 2 days of the food initially being cooked, and we can see that the majority of our respondents did say that that was the period they would eat their leftovers within, so 62% there. However, we do see people who, so 28% reporting that they'd eat it kind of beyond that, say 3 to 5 days, and a very small proportion there saying that they would eat leftovers 5 days or more after they was initially cooked. And just to give you a little bit more information now on some of our upcoming reports. So we have a number of reports which should hopefully due for publication over the next 6 months. So in autumn, so hopefully not too long, we've got our 2 secondary analysis reports. So the first being on the food hygiene rating scheme, which will give kind of a more in-depth kind of information on the questions asked around the scheme, so people's use of it, awareness and attitudes towards it. And then in autumn, we will also have our Northern Ireland specific report. So this will kind of show in more detail the findings from waves 5 and 6 related to Northern Ireland participants specifically. In winter, we will publish in our first trend report. So this will look at the differences and findings between waves 1 to 6 of the Food and U2 survey. And then finally, in spring of next year, we will publish on our next official statistic publication, so wave 7 of Food and U2. And then if you'd like to find out more about the survey, so Beth has already shown you our webpage, but there's just a reminder, if you want to find more about the survey, the list of topics that we cover and which reports they're in, that's a great place to start. There's also the link here for the Wave 6 report, which we've covered today. There's a lot of topics in there which we haven't had time to cover, so if you'd like to find out more information, the link to the report is there. We will be taking questions in a minute, but if you have any questions outside of this presentation, please feel free to reach out to the team using that email address there. And then finally, if you'd like to kind of be alerted when we publish kind of something new for Food and U2, for our official statistics publications, you can set up a gov.uk alert, or our science newsletter, which is quarterly, covers not only Food and U2, but all of the great work that's done within CERD at the FSA.
Thank you, Charlotte. I think I'm going to facilitate the Q&As now. Thank you so much. That was a really great talk and really informative. So we've got quite a few questions in the chat. If I just scroll back up to the top. So some of the questions came in when you were talking about the methodology at the beginning, Beth. So I'll start with those. Somebody asked, are the same people asked each time, or is it a new batch each round? Not sure who's going to take the question.
Should I take that one, Charlotte?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, that's cool. So they are different people each time. So once somebody's taken part in the survey, we don't invite back again for a few rounds.
Thanks, Beth. There's another couple of questions actually as well, so I'll ask those in relation to the methodology, and then if Charlotte wants to jump in, she can. So someone said, you may answer this later, but what's the take-up like?
Charlotte, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, so so for example, for wave 6, which we've just talked through, the response rate for that was around 28%. So I think it's 28.8, and we find that I think this answers someone asked a question as well, but with the response, we generally find that most people complete via the online survey. So we found that I think it was 64% completed online, and then the remainder completed via the postal questionnaire, which is sent out as well.
Great, thanks, Charlotte. There's another question here from Gillian. It says, is there an alternative to taking part online? Can participants complete a paper questionnaire or take part by phone?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so we send out a postal questionnaire. So with Food and You Too, we have kind of the initial invite letter, then 4 reminder letters. And with the second reminder letter, the postal questionnaire is sent out as well. So if someone does wish to complete via the postal rather than online, they're able to do so. And in Wales, we send that out in English and Welsh.
Great, thanks, Charlotte. Another question here from someone asking, are participants selected randomly based on a demographic UK-wide profile?
Should I take that one, Charlotte? Yeah, so our remit is just in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, typically. Wave 8 coming up is a bit of an exception. We'll be recruiting in Scotland, but it is normally just those 3 countries. And we used what's called random stratified sampling. And what we want to do is ensure that people from all across those countries are represented. So we don't accidentally recruit everybody just from England or just from Wales. So what we do is we make sure that so many people are recruited in each country, then in each region. And then we also look at what we call IMD. So it's the index of multiple deprivation and a way of identifying the kind of provision or facilities in different areas. And we make sure we recruit people across those areas as well. So hopefully by the time people respond, there's a relatively good representation across people in those areas. Hopefully that covers it. There's a lot more detail in the technical report, or again, if you want to hear more about it, just pop us an email and we can have a chat through in more detail.
Thanks, Beth. I think the next question has probably been answered by both of you, which was asking if what is the response rate and how confident are you that the responding sample is representative of the population? But I think you've answered that unless you have anything else you want to add. There were a few comments from the quiz questions, which obviously came through a little bit late by the time we were able to publish them, but there were a couple of guesses at 80 plus, and then a couple of guesses at 16 to 24 and 25, 34 for the age related question. So yeah, a couple of people got that one right. There's a question here about the cooking time and temperature. So it asks, does the question on cooking time and temperature ask about methods, e.g. starting to use an air fryer, as we have recently done, reduces both, but this is still safe?
So unfortunately not, no. That sort of thing, we would maybe do some follow-up research. We do have the option to recontact people. So if we were particularly interested in that behaviour, we'd maybe delve into it a little bit more. But it is something we're keeping an eye on. Obviously, if we see a massive jump in that behaviour, we'd maybe explore it a bit further.
Thanks, Beth. There's one more question here. How does the push to web system account for older generations or those less technologically literate?
So as Charlotte mentioned, we do also give people the option to take part on a print copy. So with one of the reminder letters, we send a hard copy of the postal survey. So hopefully that means that people with lower digital literacy who are not as confident in filling in these sorts of things online or just don't want to can also take part.
I can't see any other questions coming in. So if anyone has got a question, to post quickly now, otherwise I think we can wrap up. But just to note a couple of things, Victoria has shared in the chat a link to the latest Food New to Wave 6 report, so if you are interested to read a bit more, that's in the chat. I'm also going to post something else in the chat around for the email address that we have for the Food for Thought team. So just wanted to flag, if you're not already on the Food for Thought mailing list and you would like to join the mailing list, please email us at foodforthought@food.gov.uk, which I'll pop in the chat. Or you can search for our page on the intranet, so just search at the top Food for Thought and you can find the email address to get in touch. Also, if you'd like to get involved in the Food for Thought team and sort of volunteer to organise some of the sessions, please let us know as well. But otherwise, that's everything for today. Just check there's no more new questions. No, I think that's everything then. So we'll wrap up. Thank you again so much, Beth and Charlotte. And thank you to everyone for joining today. Have a good rest of the afternoon.